That's my...
Welcome to Hobby Palooza 2025. Hello everyone, I'm Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and I'm honored this year to be your Hobby Palooza ambassador. This year, we're once again proud to support Signatures for Soldiers, a non-profit helping disabled veterans through the power of sports autographs. As you know, we're accepting donations all weekend long, and for every $10 that you donate, you'll earn one raffle entry for some amazing prizes. The preferred way to donate is through Zelle in your banking app to the email jekofma@yahoo.com, JECOFFMA@yahoo.com. If Zelle is not an option, use PayPal, goods and services to the same email. Let's go ahead and beat last year's total of over $5,800. This hour of Hobby Palooza is brought to you by the Penny Sleever, who are generously donating 10% of this week's sales at thepennysleever.com to Signatures for Soldiers. The Penny Sleever, as you know, has top quality supplies at fair prices. Enjoy the show and have some fun.
All right. What's going on, everybody? We are off topic, as usual. Darren and myself, joined by two of my favorite guys in the hobby, Shane, Shoebox Legends, and Brent of Brent Richards and Baseball Cards. What's going on, everybody?
What's happening, fellas?
What's up?
Now, we've been watching this now for a couple of days of this whole Hobby Palooza thing. And I just do want to point out, guys, remember, this is like a telethon. It's like the Jerry Lewis telethon. Signatures for Soldiers is the recipient of any donations. That's the main reason we're doing this. And along the way, we get to have fun and hang out and talk about some cards. So remember to consider donating if you haven't already. I know at this point, probably a lot of people have, but regardless, consider doing that. Now, when we kind of talked about what we might be discussing here, I thought it would be a fun thing to talk about, like, why do we actually do this? Why do we do this hobby? And, when you think about it from a practical standpoint, these are pieces of cardboard with pictures of guys on them with some stats and information. But we find ourselves, the four of us, and a lot of people listening, we find ourselves spending time, money, energy in searching to add to our collections. And it's like, why? Like, when you really think about it, why are we doing this? Like, what is the passion? Because I have a love for it. I don't always know why I do, but that's where I think we're going to start. So, Shane, why do you collect cards?
So I think that there's two answers to this. When I was a kid, I collected cards because I loved sports. I was just rabid about sports. I played every sport I could growing up. As an adult, I think it's a combination of my love of sports and my nostalgia for childhood and collecting cards as a kid. So it almost kind of builds on itself over time. And then the longer I've been at it as an adult, I've built memories and friendships and other things that kind of contribute further to that nostalgia. And so it started with a love of sports, but it's really grown into something well beyond that over the years.
And it's interesting too. And one of the reasons I think we're a good group is because we collect so differently. I mean, Shane, you collect some modern stuff. You collect some hockey stuff. You collect vintage guys on modern cards. Brent is a big collector of stuff from when we were growing up. Darren is a big collector of older stuff. So it is interesting that we can all be buddies and collect wildly differently. How would you respond to that, Brent? Like, we're collecting these pictures, right? But we love it. Why do you love it? What's the draw for you?
Initially, it's just the love of baseball. I am a baseball only collector for the most part. I have a couple other cards like in my whole collection, but don't really care about the other sports. It's just the way it is. It's just the way I grew up loving baseball, so that's what I stick to, and that's why I initially started, collecting baseball cards. And as you can see, I mean, there's other stuff I've collected, but it's all related to the game. But baseball cards, I've told the story before with Shane, but I went on a weekend to my aunt's house with my cousin. It wasn't even my cousin that I normally hung out with. It was his sister. And they were living alone in this apartment for just a little bit. It was the only time I ever did it, never before or since. And she had some cards, and the kids across the hall from on her apartment were like just rabid collectors, and they were just talking about cards and Ken Griffey Jr., all this kind of stuff. And then I would just flip into the cards, looking at them. I think my aunt probably took us to the store and got a pack of something, 90 tops, 90 Donruss, something, you know. I think we opened something, but we were just looking at cards, and I just like, man, this is a way to connect to the game. And just, I hadn't done it before. I don't know why. I wasn't young. I mean, I was 15 years old, but just something magical happened. And I just dove in head first for decades. And I took a break from 07 to 17, I would say, something like that. But other than that, I've been collecting. I wasn't collecting heavily all that time, but for many years I was just head over heels, straightforward into it. And then fairly soon after that, I found out my brother, who was 4 years older than me, he had collected 6 years prior. And he said he had some cards somewhere, and we went and tore apart the garage and found a box. And, you know, it wasn't real baseball card boxes and stuff. It was a shoebox, just, you know, shoebox legends there. And we looked in there, and almost all of it was 1984 Donruss. And, you know, it's like, oh man, these cards look awesome. And of course there was 2 Don Mattingly's in there, and I'm like, okay, man, this is sick. My brother gave me one and gave my best friend Matthew one. So I had the Mattingly, and he basically gave me all the cards eventually. So I'm like, okay, that set is awesome looking. I fell in love with it. You know, shortly thereafter, stuff like 90 Leaf came out. Of course, the 89 Upper Deck was already out. You know, Griffey had quickly replaced Jerome Walton as the key card in that set. And, you know, just the buzz of going to shops. And it was really a way to connect with my dad at the time. When I grew up, my dad was more of my brother's guy. He, you know, he was the one playing sports and doing Cub Scouts and Little League and all that kind of stuff. I saw my Bat Boy trophy up there. I was a Bat Boy for my brother's team, but I never did organized sports at that time. So yeah, I always felt like my dad favored him and all that kind of stuff. But when baseball cards hit, my dad was a baseball fan. He never collected or anything. Never to this day would he be, unlike Darren. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people that their fathers, you know, Graig, you know, their fathers collected. Mine was nothing like that. But I think he saw it as an opportunity for us to do something together. So he would take me to the card shops. Like I said, I was 15, getting into 16, 17. I mean, I was getting to the point where I could drive and stuff anyways, but he would drive, and we would go to several different shops and discover new things. And it was kind of a magical few years that got me kicked off in this thing. And there was several cycles, and I've talked about it before, but I've had to sell all my collection 2 or 3 times. And it's kind of like, you know, you get divorced or a bad breakup, and you swear off women, or you swear off collecting. I'm just not going to do that to myself again, because I'm going to lose it again. Here I am, you know, collecting for the 3rd or 4th time, whatever it is. But you know, initially, just the love of the game, just that chance encounter at my aunt's house with my girl cousin, which, I mean, it's just the weirdest thing. And then just kind of falling for it. And I did always go for the tough stuff. Once I got past just opening packs and all that kind of stuff, I wanted the impossible stuff. If I would have kept all that stuff, or if I'd have been able to, I can't blame myself, because I had to sell it to live. But if I'd have been able to keep some of that stuff, it's worth a fortune today.
Darren, you're about to, in a week and a half, you're going to get on a plane. You're going to fly to Chicago. You're going to stay for a few nights, and you're going to pay lots of money to get into this giant room with lots of cards. And you're going to, knowing you, I have a feeling you'll probably buy a card that is, you know, we'll just say over $1,000. Why? Why are you going to shell out this money for some baseball cards?
Capital appreciation. Joking. No, I love everything about it, right? I love the nostalgia of the cards. I love the history of baseball. I love, you know, seeing all my buddies there, spending time with my dad and my brother. Like everything about the National and about collecting, I think, are just, you know, big for me. I like to collect things in general, and, you know, obviously love baseball, so that we just kind of naturally just kind of a natural flow there of collecting baseball cards and other sport cards as well. And yeah, I mean, just spending time with people, making new friends. It's just all in all, I love everything about the hobby.
Now, Shane, how's it changed though? Like you started to talk about it a minute ago. When you first started collecting, you're probably a kid. You see these guys on TV. You open some packs. Oh, that guy's on my team. I like this guy, you know, maybe a whaler like the little guy you have behind you on the box. But then now it starts to morph, and it starts to morph into there are different reasons that you do it as a grown man than you did maybe as a kid. So like what changed for you? Like how is it different now than it was when you were a kid? But how important is the new stuff compared to what was important when you were little?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, the longer you're in the hobby, it starts off, at least when I returned as an adult, as being primarily about nostalgia. But over time, a lot of us anyway, want to increase the challenge of the hobby, and get into some things that are a little bit tougher, maybe cost a little bit more money. And so there is that aspect of it. Like I still love dollar box cards or a 25-cent card if it evokes a certain emotion or memory in me. But the longer I've been in the hobby, a lot of us start to put, sometimes pretty significant money, like you mentioned, into some of these cards. And so it's not the primary driving force, but I think that is a factor in collecting as an adult. And you said at the beginning, everybody has limited time, money, and you're making decisions on how to spend that time and money. And so oftentimes, some things you do, like I'm a big concert fan. And when I spend money going to a concert, it's purely about the experience. And what I think is cool about the hobby, as you get into it longer, or maybe start to spend a little bit more significant money or invest significant money in the hobby, it provides all that great entertainment value as well. But you also end up over time kind of accumulating a collection that is an asset or has some value to it as well, which is kind of cool. There aren't a lot of places in life where those two things intersect. So I'm in the hobby because I love it, but I think more as an adult, given the amount of money that I put into the hobby these days, I think more about being wise with how I'm spending it and not spending money like I'm a 7-year-old excited about everything in the hobby, but with a much bigger bankroll behind me, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
Mhm.
And we have our first request to see Leo in the chat, Shane. Leo is Shane's adorable dog that he takes care of for me. It's really my dog. He just takes care of him. So let me kind of roll with that a little bit. So Darren and Brent, whoever wants to go first, fine. Shane was just mentioning, yeah, we spend some pretty significant money at times, and we're like, but we have spouses, Darren and Brent you have children, and at times, do your loved ones Darren, what does your wife and family think when you're flying around the country to go see me at a card show and you spend all this money? Like, how does that go? Like,
I mean, my family likes when I'm around. I don't know why, but they do. So they get, they miss me when I'm gone. They know I enjoy it, so they're cool with it. I think my whole family thinks I'm way less cool than I think I am, and this just kind of reinforces it, which is good for them, prove their point. But in general, they're cool with it because they know that that is something that I enjoy doing.
Brent, what about you? Like, do you get eye rolls like I get at times?
Yeah, I don't think she cares much about it. That's for sure. She doesn't like it. That's for sure. But I think she knows that it's something that makes me happy. So it's something we just don't talk a lot about, believe it or not. I mean, it's a big part of my life, but it is not a big part of our life. So, and my son, of course, is kind of our main focus in our life, and just he's the best thing ever. But the hobby is the other thing that just distracts you from the realities of the struggles we have with work and everything else in life, and even with marriage. I mean, it's kind of a thing that we can kind of go to escape. And you know, like Shane said about the nostalgia, I mean, that's a big part of it, and it still is with me. Just the nostalgia of being a kid. I think everybody has that. Like everybody says, you go to high school and then you kind of try to relive that the rest of your life. And that's kind of a true statement. You know, you kind of want things to be like they were back then in certain ways. And you know, collecting mostly the stuff I collect is guys of that era, and that's what makes me feel the best. I mean, I can collect older stuff. I have some of the ultra modern, but honestly, I collect ultra modern of the guys from 30, 40 years ago. That's, you know, nothing geeks me out like getting a Nolan Ryan card that I just think is super cool. I mean, I've tried everything. I've bought all kinds of different stuff. Even a Ty Cobb doesn't do it for me like that. It's just who I am. I want to connect to what I love and what I saw growing up, my dad, everything else surrounding that kind of thing. So that's kind of, you know, why I collect, and it really hasn't changed for me. Like Shane said, we collect a lot more rare stuff. We go after different things today. We're not just buying. I don't think we buy wax pretty much at all anymore. It's gotten expensive, and it's just not much in there that we would be interested in. But back in the day, it was. I mean, opening up a box. It wasn't even a box back then, but a few packs, whatever we could get of Donruss or Flea or whatever it was, just, man, that made us happy. And I had that friend Matthew. So that after the dad era, when I've gotten to my upper teens, it was me and my friend Matthew. So, and we had another friend named Keith. There was other people kind of came and went, but for a few years there, it was me and him. I'd go over to his house. He had a big house and 900 acres and stuff. So we were camping. We were always over there. No reason to come to my house, really. 4 kids, and just, I mean, it was much better to go there. We would, you know, trade cards, open packs, do all that kind of stuff together. And that was another era of my collecting that was just super duper enjoyable. And it was just so fun. Just kind of kept that magic going. He kind of got out fairly quickly. I don't remember why or anything like that, but I just kept going. So I just never stopped. My love for the hobby, my love for cards, just never waned. And I didn't really get out of it till I got married for about 10 years. There was just no way to buy anything. We had to sell stuff, and just, you know, until me and my friend James kind of reconnected in 2017, started going to some games. My nephew, we started doing some stuff together, and it just kind of got me back. And I did start again, just, you know, buying some packs at the store. That's kind of how it started, getting things here and there and just kind of getting my feet wet. And then I realized, man, I kind of want a couple of the things I used to have. and I would always say I would never rebuy that stuff because I lost it. So I just, you know, it seemed like I would never do that again. Now there's some big cards I'll never be able to have again. But a lot of the ones that I liked, I'm like, man, I should pick up that. And then I should pick up that. And then it became, yeah, I kind of want everything that I could go after.
I mean, well said. Our buddy Matthew, 1956 Tops guy in the chat, just had a comment that was up a minute ago. I was talking about how stressful life can be, that the rabbit hole of cards is sometimes a really welcome escape.
It is.
And I completely agree with that. And I think that it's a healthy escape because there are a lot of things we could be doing. There's the comment that would not be nearly as healthy as what we're doing. And so while my wife at times might go, "You're really going to fly to Cleveland again?" I'm like, but I could be doing things that are not as, you know, healthy as this. So it's not that bad. Now, for me, when talking about collecting and when doing collecting, I'm constantly thinking about what I have. I'm constantly reevaluating what I have. At times, does this fit? Does this not fit? But part of the allure of collecting for me is kind of the strategy of how to get to where I want my collection to go. So like right now, I might have certain cards and I might like a lot of those cards, but I might say my collection is right here, but my ultimate goal for my collection is over here. And so sometimes it's like playing chess. It's like playing, you know, Risk. It's like playing some of these board games where you're trying to find a way to identify where you want to go and then how to get there. So let me go over to you, Darren, first on this one. What direction do you see your collection heading right now, or an area that you're kind of heading that, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you would have been surprised to hear that was something that you were starting to kind of bring into the fold?
I would say that directionally, kind of high level, it's still moving the same way. I like to pick up iconic cards. I think one of the changes is I've been looking at some non-baseball cards recently, picked a couple up, have a couple more on my list. So I think that's kind of the biggest change. I wouldn't say that would have surprised me so much. I know I've liked those cards. I just wanted to start with baseball. But I think really the biggest change, I think, over the next couple of years will probably be that I get fewer cards, because I've got my stepdaughter's going to college in a few weeks, and then my stepson and my daughter go to college in a couple of years, and I don't want to be the guy that's buying baseball cards and then say, oh, we can't do this or that, right? So family comes first. So over the next, I would say 4 or 5 years, I'll still be picking up some cool stuff, but I'll probably just do it in kind of a little bit lower quantity. But other than that, I think everything's kind of moving along the same way it always has been, just picking up cards that I love and remind me of when I was a kid going to card shows with my dad and my brother.
I get that, and the family first, and you know, I will have 2 daughters in college next year myself, so I definitely understand where you're coming from. Shane, I know you've been selling a lot of cards from your collection. You've talked about it on your channel a lot, and you've been picking up some cards as well, and some kind of different cards that you've been picking up than you were, you know, a couple years ago, 3 years ago, when I started watching your channel. When you're selling cards off, are those cards that you no longer, you don't, you're just like, I don't like these cards? Or is it more of a, I'm going to cut off this right here so that I can grow this over here? What's sort of your philosophy on how do you decide what to sell and when to sell it? And how are you prioritizing that over the thing that you're going after?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for many years, when I got back in as an adult, I was just in like accumulation mode, right? There's tons of cards out there that we all think are cool or would love to own. And I was kind of approaching it, to, you know, like I talked about earlier, with the mindset of a kid who's back in the hobby with a much bigger budget. But after enough years of that, I just became confined on like physical space and mental space. I admire the folks like John Mangini and others who have these enormous collections, hundreds of thousands of cards, but I've realized like that's not the kind of collection I want to have, and I can't really enjoy a collection of that size. And I came to the realization that I had a lot of cards just sitting in boxes now for, I'm not kidding, years at a time without even coming out and seeing the light of day. And when I looked at that, combined with what some of them had done value wise, and again, it's not all about money, but you do have to consider, you know, it's almost like having a bunch of rolled up wads of $100 bills sitting in a cardboard box in the back of the closet. So what I've been doing is going through, and I'm not selling what's hot in the moment or what I think is going to make me the most money, but I'm looking at my overall collection with a goal of reducing its size, both physically and the weight that it has on me mentally, keeping track of all this and storing it all. And I'm just going from the stuff that I appreciate the least and will miss the least, working up towards what I would miss the most or could never replace. And so I'll never get all the way to the end. There's items in my collection that I will keep forever, but the rest of it is kind of a sliding scale. And if I can get rid of 200 cards that I haven't looked at in 10 years and use those funds to bring in something that I'm going to look at every week and smile every time I see it, then that's like a no-brainer. And I'm reducing, you know, I'm accomplishing the goal of reducing my collection size at the same time.
I'm going to turn it to you, Brent, in just a second. But first, just a reminder, this is a fundraiser, what we're doing today and yesterday. This is to help a worthy cause, which is Signatures for Soldiers. So if you have not yet donated, I'm sure down in the description, there's probably a link. And at the next show, there will be a link and directions on how to participate in that if you're interested. I want to point out Andrew Deutsch in the chat. It's good to see you, buddy. I've missed seeing your witty chats, and a Gremlins reference just a second ago brings back a lot of nostalgia for me as well. Matthew, 1956 Tops Guys, is producing the show from the chat at this point, because what he just said was, we think about the cards that we don't have sometimes more than the cards that we do have. And I think that I'm probably guilty of that. Brent, you seem to be better than a lot of people at appreciating what you actually have, is what it seems like to me. Like, you seem like you have so much joy pulling cards out of those boxes and looking at them. You seem like you have a lot of fun doing that. And I think that that's something that I'm weak at. Something that I tend to do is I look at what I want as like a checklist. And then when I check the box, sometimes I go, okay, now what? You know, it's like a round of golf. I've played the third hole, and now I'm not thinking about the first, second, or third. I'm now thinking about, you know, the last 15 holes. And you have to find a way to enjoy what you've experienced and what you're doing. And sometimes I think that I at least don't do that. How do you, I mean, and am I misreading you, or are you a person who is longing for things you don't have instead of enjoying what you do have? Or if you do find a way to enjoy what you do have, how can you help? What can you tell the rest of us to do to be more like that?
Well, look, I mean, you know, we're talking about collecting. I mean, there's a couple things in life that are like the worst financial decisions you can make. One of them is having kids. The other one, yeah. And the other one is accumulating stuff, buying things. And that's what we're into. So financially, I can't say anything smart about any of this. But as far as enjoying what you have, yeah, I don't long so much for the stuff I don't have anymore. I used to. Shane kind of helped me through that, because I had pretty much all of my grails at one point, and I just used to feel really bad about not having them anymore. And Shane said, "Look, at least you had them. You know, at least, you know, most people don't get their grails. You know, you at least you had them at one point. Just think of it that way." So I try not to think too much about the stuff I don't have. What it is, I think, in this hobby is what's next. Like, everybody just wants what's next, looking at eBay trying to find the next thing, and then not appreciating what they have. None of us are going to have a Honus Wagner. I mean, there's a lot of things it doesn't do any good for us to try to think about feeling bad that we don't have. But I think it's more about the chase for something new that keeps us from enjoying what we have. Now, the best part about YouTube, and the only reason I came back, is guys like you. I mean, friends in the hobby is the best part. The cards are great, but I had the cards before. I had the collection before. I enjoyed the collection before. There is a big difference between that and doing what we do on YouTube. One of the side benefits of doing YouTube videos is pulling out cards and looking at them and enjoying them more often than you would. So trying to get together a video, get a bunch of cards out, you know, kind of geek out over them again, not just when you first get them and throw them in a box, or however you collect, you know. But that's another benefit of doing these videos, because you get to kind of enjoy them again. And I do enjoy. I still, I mean, I'm 50 years old now. I geek out over cards. So it is what it is. I don't want that to change. I have such a hard life over here. I don't want to lose kind of my childlike feeling about this stuff, because that's what helps you get through. But I do. I think pulling them out and doing videos for them. I know, Greg, you are much more topical, and you know, you don't always show your cards. You show your new pickups and things like that. But basically, my channel, which is, I mean, it's just a small channel. It's going to stay small because the collector focus isn't the same as what normally is on YouTube. But showing cards all the time is kind of what helps that. And it just, instead of me kind of doing it for myself, I get to do it, and other people get to see it, and they see the joy that I have for these cards. And hopefully it helps in some way for them to enjoy theirs as well.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I'll go ahead and point out the comment from the 4 collectors in the back that said, "Greg, the donation information is scrolling at the bottom of the screen, you idiot." So yes, if you want to donate, it is scrolling at the bottom of the screen, along with information from the sponsor of Hobby Palooza this year, which is the Penny Sleever. Our guy Isaac is a great guy, so support the Penny Sleever. I don't show cards as often. I love conversations like this
Yeah.
where it's philosophical. I like seeing other people's collections. I don't feel like people are that interested in seeing mine. And it also feels weird for me to talk about myself and my own collection, just for me. So I like to hear topical things. Earlier, the Stacking Slabs guy and Chris Hoge were doing kind of a philosophical discussion about the hobby, and I was really enjoying hearing those guys talk. But I do have a pickup to share, and I showed Shane earlier. Brent wasn't in here yet, and I don't know if I've shown Darren. So I am going to show a card if that's okay, and it kind of ties into why I collect. So this is a Michael J. Fox autographed 1986 Back to the Future Part 2 card. And you can see the blue color match with the trim around the border. And to me, this is exactly why this card is exactly why I collect. And I don't have a huge budget, and I'm heading into the National. And you know, I've been saving and spending very little going to the National. But then I saw that card with that pen, with that cool picture, with that color match. And I was like, I need that card. Like, that card speaks to my childhood, like the Back to the Futures movies, you know, the Goonies movies, the Better Off Dead movies, the, you know, Ferris Bueller Day Off movies. Like, that was my childhood. And it's wrapped up in a card, and it's not a sports card. You know, it's not a, you know, Roger Clemens or Barry Bonds or anybody like that. But that, when I look at that, I'm like, man, that thing is sweet. And for me, that's a big part of it for me. But you guys, you all kind of touched on something, and especially Brent just a second ago, is that YouTube and card collecting, they are intertwined, but they are kind of different. They're almost like separate hobbies that talk about one of our hobbies. And I guess my question, I'll go to you, Darren, is when you think about going to the National, when you think about going to Strongsville, when you think about the excitement of those things, how much of that is the connections that you've made on YouTube versus the cards? Because originally we started with the cards. We all started with the cards.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then for a lot of us, it is now turned into this YouTube community, culture, hobby, connections, faces that we recognize, guys that we feel like we know, even if we've never met. I've never been in the same state as Brent or Shane, but I text with those guys most days. So how much, Darren, is the excitement of something like the National or like Strongsville or like any of this tied to the YouTube hobby versus the card hobby?
I would say it's shifting, right? Like you said, when I first started, it was more about the cards, and I think each year, especially Strongsville, like this year, you know, I didn't even have any gold cards at Strongsville. I was like, hey, I'm going to go hang out with my buddies and bring some money and not leave it on the chair at the restaurant, hopefully, and you know, go buy some cards that I like that when I see them. But the primary goal was to go hang out with my buddies. National is very similar. The only difference is my dad and brother go to that, and I really like hanging out with them too there, obviously. And I think each year that I attend these events, they're slightly less about the cards and more about the people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a goal. Like, if you ask me, hey, what's your goal card for the National? I don't have one. I don't even have a list for the National. I haven't even remember the list we went over in January. I haven't looked at that list in probably 3-4 months.
Out the window.
Yeah.
No,
like, I want to go and hang out. And if there's some cards that, you know, look like they'd be a good fit for the collection, then I'll pick them up. But that's not
100%.
That's not my goal of going there anymore.
Yeah, me and Shane just had our show on shows, and that's exactly what it is. If I could go to the show, it would be to hang out with you guys. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably buy some cards, but it's there as rare an opportunity as that would be to be in the same room with you fellas would be by far the best thing. And yes, Andrew, awesome to have you back out there. I see Mookie, Dylan, a bunch of other friends, but super cool to see you after all this time, bud.
There are about 120 people in the chat for those keep
Sweet.
track. I appreciate everybody who has shown up.
Absolutely.
Also appreciate everybody who has made a donation for signatures for soldiers. Shane, let me ask you, because you kind of live up in the northeastern tip of the country, which is away from the heart of where a lot of these big shows go, kind of like me out as a loner out on the West Coast. And so if we were to go to something, we have to travel further than some. And I think you and I are actually wired similarly. I mean, heck, we both had the dream career of being a mail carrier as kids. If you guys don't know that, then if you know, you know. And so Shane,
they could use you right now.
Good. So Shane, let me ask you, you know, you haven't been to any of the big shows. Most of the people that you watch on YouTube, you've never been in the same room with. A couple, you know, I've seen you with Dom and stuff. Like, how much of a draw is that to go, maybe I'm going to do that at some point for the people, not just the cards? Because let's face it, with technology, every card is in our living room. We could buy any card we want at any time that we want that you could possibly dream of. So the cards you could do sitting in your basement by yourself. But this other part is the part that you can't. And so as a person who has been doing, you know, your YouTube channel for a while, you know, I know you're good buddies with Brent. I know you're good buddies with, you have a lot of good buddies, but you know, Dylan, Dylan is like as far from you as anyone could possibly be. But you and Dylan are tight. You collect similarly. Dylan's in the chat. Like, where do you stand on that? Like, are you getting to the point where you're like, I just need to go to one of these so that I can actually see these guys and see if they're actually real people?
I mean, that would be fantastic. And I certainly wouldn't turn down the opportunity. And I hope to do it in the future. But in the meantime, the relationships I've developed are more than enough for me and are adding a ton of enjoyment to the hobby. In fact, I was thinking about it recently, talking with Brent, and it's like, if you had to all of a sudden tomorrow shut down your YouTube channel, delete all your text contacts, never be able to comment on a YouTube video again, no social interaction, and you had to go back to practicing the hobby, you know, in complete isolation, like some of us did, would you want to still do it? I don't know if I would. For me, the needle has swung so much towards the people and away from the cards themselves that I'm not sure if I'd really stay in the hobby at that point, or I'd have to seriously consider it, which is interesting.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brent. Sounds like you wanted to say something.
No, that's a good point. I think I'd be more apt to stay in it a little bit than Shane, but I get the sentiment. It's now that we didn't know what we were missing before YouTube. Let's just put it that way. But now that we do know what we were missing, and even if I was going to stop making content, I wasn't going to stop talking to friends, I wasn't going to stop watching YouTube, all that kind of stuff. Now that we have this, we know what we have. And to give it up now turns the hobby into something far less enjoyable. And I don't think any of us would want to go back to that. Now, ignorance is bliss. I enjoyed it before, but now that we enjoy it at this level because of you guys, you know, you don't want to give that up and go backwards that far in enjoyment just to go back to the cards with, like, if we couldn't even share a pickup with the text with a buddy, you know, it's not nearly as fun for whatever reason. Your mind just kind of changes when you start connecting with other people. And now it's not as fun to get a pickup without saying, hey, Shane, check this out. Or, you know, texting all you guys, or showing it on a video with all the wonderful people that choose to watch this stuff. And it would be hard to go back. And I think it would feel more isolated than it did before.
Darren, John 3D80s kid had a comment in the chat a second ago, and he said, I disagree with the majority of Dylan's takes, but I love the guy. When you're watching, Thank you for pulling that. Yeah. Now, I think that's part serious, part you know, messing with him. But nonetheless, when you're watching YouTube videos, how drawn are you to the people who collect like you, who think like you, versus the people who collect differently than you and think differently than you? Because like two of the guys on the screen with us right now have, you know, not a ton of cards that you have, do they have as well? So you collect very differently.
Yeah.
Are you a person who tends to want to watch content? Take me through that mindset, that process of watching a video with a guy who collects like you versus not like you.
I like to watch content made by content creators that I like. I think there are people that collect cards that I really want, and I don't like watching their channels versus, and there's other guys that have completely different collections than me, and I enjoy watching their channels, right? So I think for me, it's more about when somebody has a channel and it's like they show their cards that they collect regardless of what they are, and they show the passion and how much they love the cards. Those videos are more enjoyable than somebody saying, hey, you need to buy this card because it's going to go up in value, and then it goes down in value, and people listen to them and they lose money on it. I mean, I don't like watching those channels, right? People give advice, and I mean, for the most part, a lot of those guys that give advice, the only advice they ever give that is relevant is in hindsight. Like, if I had bought this then and sold it today, it would have gone up. But anything they talk about in the future is always wrong. Like, but they might show cards like, hey, I bought a 52 Topps Mantle, sweet, but I don't like your video because you're, never mind. So, I mean, I think for me, it's more about the person making the video and less about what they're showing. Now, there are a lot of people who show really cool cards and, you know, that don't align with, you know, my collecting strategy. And I enjoy watching their videos. You know, I like I said, I'd rather watch a video of somebody who has joy in has joy for the hobby than watching a video of somebody who really could give a shit but thinks they're cool because, you know, they're giving crappy advice and showing really expensive cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things for me where, you know, I like seeing people express their love of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, for me, you know, maybe you met a friend or a couple and you say like, hey, how did you guys meet? And you just see the excitement on the husband or the wife, or maybe one of them, of how excited they are to tell the story because of how much they love the other person. Even if, you know, you, through your eyes, look at that person and go, you find that person to be appealing, but I still love hearing the person talk about why they love that person and how much they love that person. And to me, it's not so much about the cards themselves. And I think that I'm kind of saying some of what you were saying, Darren. It's not about the cards that themselves that people are showing. It's about the love that they have and the passion that they have for what they're showing. And that is the part that intrigues me the most. A lot of the videos that I watch are people that collect modern stuff. And I don't collect modern stuff. I mean, I have a handful. It's not that I don't collect it, but it's not the primary focus of what I'm doing. The primary focus of what I'm doing is something much different than that. The primary focus of what I'm doing is a lot of stuff that other people don't like. I have a lot of vintage golf cards. I have freaking pirate cards. There aren't a ton of people who are going to show up at the National and go, show me the table with the pirate cards on them. They're just not going to do that. But I love them. And so when I talk about them, I think that people appreciate that I like them, even if they don't like them. And that's one of the things I like about your channel, Shane, is I just sense this giddiness when you're showing your new pickups that to me is infectious. Even though I'm not a hockey card collector, there are times where I see you showing some Ovechkin or something, and I'm just like, do I want that card? I'm like, no, I don't want that card. I'm just falling for how much Shane likes that card. You know what I mean? how would you speak to that, Shane? When you're watching videos, is that how you feel? Are you drawn to the channels that are drawn to what they're doing, or are you drawn to the channels that are showing things and giving you ideas for your own collection?
So honestly, it's about 50-50. So I agree with everything that everybody said about the personality and the excitement behind it. But I'm also, when I'm dedicating time to watching YouTube, I think of it as somewhat of a learning experience. And I'm trying to enhance my knowledge of the hobby in some way. So if I can see a card that I've never seen before, on Brent's channel, or a pirate card on your channel, or a Grover Cleveland Alexander card I didn't know existed that Darren shows off, like, I'm learning something about the hobby that I didn't know before, and I'm getting better at the hobby. I know that's a relative term and you can't be better or worse, but I'm improving my own hobby knowledge and experience. And I like channels that get me to think about the hobby in a different way. So we all have our own angle or our own likes or dislikes, but there's a lot of different people with different viewpoints and ways to kind of turn the hobby on its head, or think about something in a different way that maybe I wouldn't have, on my own in a vacuum. And I think that's why I love the social element. And a lot of your videos, Graig, kind of get my gears going like that. Just, flipping a hobby topic on its head, tossing it around for a while. I spend an inordinate amount of my day like just thinking about baseball cards when I'm sitting in a line at a checkout or sitting in a waiting room. Like, that's what's going through my head. So I like those channels that kind of get me to think outside the box, or maybe approach the hobby in a way that I wouldn't have thought to do it on my own.
So my wife and my daughters are at church right now, and I'm not with them because I'm with you guys, which is great. And if a good sermon has everybody that's there go, I think that person was talking to me, and it can actually apply to each of us. If there's ever a message that a communicator is giving, whether it's a teacher or a pastor or a YouTube content creator, and it feels like they're just talking to like two people, then I don't really know how effective that communication is, because you're using this, this very broadcasted, ability on YouTube, but you're talking to three people. So I try to talk in ways and share my thoughts in ways that try to be open-minded, because then people feel like they're actually engaged and involved in it. Brent, when I see you share your 1990 Leaf cards, for example, like, you've got an awesome 1990 Leaf collection. And I remember that video sticking out to me because as you're talking about it, you've just got like this crazy amount of joy for them. And it's probably one of the reasons that I've gotten into a little bit of nostalgia purchases myself. I was texting you the night that I bought my Griffey Upper Deck card finally, and I was texting you guys when I bought my Mattingly Donruss. I mean, you remember that night, right? And a lot of that, I think, is seeing your joy of these childhood cards made me go, I think I love those too. And so even though you weren't talking to me, I interpreted it as, yeah, like, this was a special time. These are special cards. And it was like the confirmation I needed to actually purchase some of those. I mean, is that something that you think about when you're making a video, or do you just think about, well, this is what I like and I'm going to talk about it, and I'm sure there are going to be some people that like it?
Oh, that's a good point. And at the beginning, it definitely wasn't something I thought about. I just said, when I got on, I'm just like, I'm not going to do different things that I don't want to do just to try to get the views and the likes and the big channel and all that kind of stuff, because I'll never have that. I'm not a vintage guy. I'm not, ultra modern Jeff Wilson stuff going on. So I'm just going to be kind of a smaller channel. But I figured if I just was myself and just showed what I love, there's got to be someone out there that would connect with it. But mostly it was just, I wasn't even thinking that far down the road at the time. Now I do think about that. But I'm never going to be fake or try to, fake any enthusiasm toward anything, because it's just not me. But there are people that grew up with us, and they feel the same way that we do about things. I mean, you finally got the Leaf Frank Thomas, which is great. But there's a lot of things that don't cost a lot, and there's a lot of things. But there's ways to do it in ways. Let me see here. So this is another way Shane influenced me. First of all, I got my flux capacitor here, so
Perfect.
We can all go back in time. If I could use this to go back and relive those days, 100%, I would. But like, there's ways of doing it now, like 1990 Topps Frank Thomas, $5 card, right? But you can go find this if you can find it. Rediscover Topps Buyback, and you can have a card from there that we love, but have something like Shane said, when we evolved and we wanted to do something that's tougher to find and rarer, we can still have the nostalgia, but we can have something super, super cool that we feel a little more geeked out about than just the standard one.
Let me jump in there on that, because I was with my brother a couple of days ago. We were up in
Mate.
What's that?
Mate.
No, yeah, Matt. We were up outside of Lake Tahoe, up in the mountains, and my brother was talking about he's like, I need a hobby. I go, get back into cards. Get back into cards, dude. And he goes, because he was a card collector. He was going all over the shows with my dad and myself, and he was like, yeah, but the stuff that I get nostalgic about, the stuff that I like, are like 1990 Topps. And it's just, the cards have no value. So what am I going to go out and buy a bunch of cards that have no value? And I said, there are these ways that they've made these cards rarer. You know, you could do autographed 1990 Topps cards. You could do buyback 1990 Topps cards. And he goes, what are you talking about? Buyback? Like, what do you mean? And I literally sent him one of Shane's videos. I go, I'm going to forward you a video. You know, I got a couple of buddies that are way into this kind of stuff, because they're the same as you. They want the nostalgia, but they want something that has an added rarity. And again, it's like, I find the appeal through you guys by hearing the joy and the passion that you guys have for it. I then go, well, I now have that in my tool chest of, now I have this person talking about, I want this, this, and this. And I go, problem solved, because I watch these guys, and, you know, you can get into that. You can have what you want and check those boxes. And I haven't talked to him since, if you watched the video or not, but it's just, that's part of what I love about the menu, you know. And when I have people come on my channel and I go, oh, gee, great, another video about SGC. And I'm like, dude, scroll on, bro. Like, scroll on. There's a giant menu. You couldn't possibly watch everything out there. So we have this giant menu. It's like cable television, where you have 250 channels. And if you like the Food Network, but you don't like Bobby Flay, when Bobby Flay comes on, change it over to something else. You know, there's lots of options out there. And so I like the big menu, and I like being able to say that over there is something now that I'm aware of, because one of the channels that I watch taught me about that. And I wouldn't have known what those buyback things were. We've got a couple of minutes left. I feel like I haven't heard from Darren in a minute. Darren, what are your final thoughts before we wrap up? We've got 2 minutes, 90 seconds.
Final thoughts. So, I mean, I think net, that's the nice thing about the hobby, is that it doesn't matter what you like. If you collect what you enjoy collecting, then it's a fun hobby. And, you know, and I think, kind of going back to a point earlier where we talked about, like, we watch videos of people who collect cards we like, and potentially cards we might dislike, but they're passionate about it. I want to clarify, I don't dislike any cards. Like, I think they're all cool. I mean, when somebody shows like a rainbow fractory thingy that is super shiny, that's cool. Like, I think that looks cool, right? You know, I think if you know, somebody shows a card from the 1800s, that's cool too, right? I don't dislike any cards. I like all cards. I just have the ones that I prefer to collect. And just because I don't prefer to collect the type of card that somebody else prefers to collect doesn't mean I don't like it. It just means that it's not my style for my budget, right? So, so I think net, I think why we collect because we enjoy collecting. We enjoy this. We enjoy the hobby. We enjoy sports. We enjoy baseball. We like the cards, the things we could look at, right? Like Shane said, you know, you could be having a you know, you could have a bad day. I've done that before where I get off a meeting and I'm like, well, that sucked. And then I take 10 minutes and I open up my case and I pull out a bunch of my cards and I lay them out on my pool table and just look at them and say, sweet, man, I love these cards. I want to just look at them and check them out and then put them away and get back to what I was doing. Right. So if what you're doing brings you happiness, then this is the right hobby for you. Right. So it doesn't matter how you do it, just do it.
We're
Yeah,
about to get the
100%.
Gonzo Shepherd's hook off the stage. So we're going to go, but this is off topic with myself and Darren and two of my favorite guys in the hobby, Shane Shoebox Legends, Brent Richards, and Baseball Cards. Subscribe to those guys if you haven't. Go donate to Signatures for Soldiers.
Yeah.
Appreciate For Collectors for allowing us to have this opportunity in this time slot. So thanks for everybody who showed up to hear what we had to say.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Love the hobby. Keep collecting baseball cards.
But hey, we want to keep the lights on here at For Collector Studios, so hit the like button for us, guys.
So thanks everybody for coming, and yeah, we'll see you next time on For Collectors.
All right, guys, have a great rest of your night. Subscribe to the For Collectors channel if you haven't done so yet, and we'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Clemente Collector has said we hit a grand slam, so that makes me feel good.